Palworld has reached version 1.0, and if you think you've already mastered the game just because you played back in early access, I have some news. A lot has changed, and today I'm going to show you 10 advanced tips that will literally change the way you play this final version. This isn't that basic content like how to capture your first pal. This is for those who already have hours of gameplay and want to go further. If you want to save time, avoid silly mistakes, and finally understand what really matters in this version 1.0, stay with me until the end. I'm Mary, and the video is about to start. One thing I came to understand over time in Palworld 1.0 is how breeding makes a huge difference, especially when you start paying attention to passives. In the beginning, I ignored this quite a bit, but later I realized that trying to build a lineage with Tier 3 abilities completely changes the outcome of your pals. What worked best for me was focusing on capturing common pals in large quantities, like Digtoise and Relaxosaurus. It's not the most exciting part of the game, but it helps a lot to find good passives without relying on absurd luck. Gradually, you separate the best ones and use them in crossbreeding, almost like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. Over time, you can direct this to create a very strong Anubis, even in the mid-game. I wouldn't say it's fast or easy, but when it starts working out, you realize how much it pays off. An Anubis with well-chosen passives ends up being useful in practically everything, both at the base and in combat. What I felt is that breeding remains one of the safest ways to get truly good pals in version 1.0. It's not a system that everyone will want to delve into, but if you have patience and want to genuinely improve your team, it's well worth learning gradually. In the beginning, every time I captured duplicates, I simply sold them or used them just for XP and moved on. Only later did I realize that I was literally throwing away one of the strongest systems for progression in the mid and late game. When you start using the PAL condensation essence container the right way, everything changes. Instead of seeing duplicate pals as garbage, you start viewing them as resources. I began saving those that had some utility and fused everything into a main pal, and the result is much more consistent than keep trying your luck capturing something better. The impact of this goes beyond just increasing stats like HP, attack, and defense. What caught my attention the most was how this affects work suitability. A pal that was already good at mining, for example, starts yielding much more, reaching levels that unlock better resources and accelerate base progress. It's a difference you feel in the daily gameplay. Today, whenever I capture duplicates, I immediately think of condensation. It's not a flashy system at first glance, but when you understand its value, it becomes hard to ignore. If the idea is to optimize your team and your base without relying solely on luck, this is one of the best ways to do it in version 1.0. One thing I simply ignored at the start of version 1.0 were those leader passives, like Vanguard or Mining Foreman. I thought they only made a difference when the PAL was active on the field, helping directly. But after testing it more thoroughly, I realized that their impact goes way beyond that. The detail that changes everything is that these bonuses remain active even with the PAL inside the sphere. In other words, you don't even need to put it to fight or work directly. Just by being on your team, it already increases your own attributes. When I understood this, I started building my team with these buffs in mind, and the difference was quite clear. For combat, this means more damage without needing to completely change your playstyle. And for farming, especially mining, it gets even stronger. You can extract resources faster and with less effort just by adjusting who you carry in your party. It's that type of optimization that doesn't seem like a big deal, but over accumulated time, it makes a huge difference. Today, I always reserve a few team slots for this type of passive. It's not mandatory to play, but once you get used to these bonuses, it's hard to go back. It's a simple way to make your character more efficient without relying only on equipment or level. Before, I did everything in a somewhat improvised way. Produced a few, ran out of resources, went back to farming, that slow cycle. But when I focused on truly automating, the game started to flow much better. The foundation of this strategy is the production assembly line 2 running non-stop. And here comes an important detail. It's not enough to just build it. You need to assign the right pals. I started using Anubis precisely because of its high level of handiwork, and the production speed increases significantly. It's that type of optimization you feel immediately. However, the real secret lies in the base support. It's no use having fast production if you don't sustain the resources. So I had to organize everything around that, ensuring a constant flow of paldium fragments, high-quality pal oil, and carbon fiber. When this clicks into gear, you practically no longer have to worry about running out of spheres. And the result of this is simple. You start playing at another pace. With legendary spheres always available, capturing alphas and legendary pals stops being that rare moment and becomes a natural part of progression. For me, this was one of the most impactful changes in how to play version 1.0. One thing I wish I had understood earlier is that you don't have to stay stuck with the attribute choices from the beginning of the game. I personally put many points into weight and attack to facilitate exploration, carry more resources, and accelerate initial progress. And that works fine, except I kept wondering if that would harm me later. What changes everything is the memory wiping medicine. When I discovered that you could completely reset attributes, it became much more reassuring to play without fear of making a mistake. You can build your character thinking about the current moment of the game without that pressure of, I have to get everything right from the start. When you reach the end game, especially in the fights against the tower bosses, the needs change entirely. I felt a big difference redistributing my points to focus more on stamina, health, and even adjusting attack better depending on the situation. The build becomes much more prepared for actual combat instead of just exploration. And the best part is that this doesn't erase your general progress. Permanent bonuses from elixirs remain valid, so you truly only adjust your baseline for that specific moment of the game. For me, this completely removed the fear of testing different builds and ended up making the experience much more flexible. That giant base where you try to do everything at the same time is an emotional trap. It looks smart on paper, combining farming, mining, breeding, and still keeping your pals comfortable, but in practice, it becomes a festival of inefficiency. Your pals keep getting stuck on each other, nobody works properly, and you spend more time managing a mess than actually enjoying the game. The move is to shift towards strict specialization. Set up one base just for farming and cooking, and put Lylene and Jormuntide there to shine at what they do best. No other pals stealing attention, no ores scattered in the middle of the kitchen. It's like having an organic farm running by itself while you're out there exploring the map without worries. Then you erect a second base right on top of those rich nodes of ore and coal, and this one lives solely to mine. Got it? And you can't forget the third one, a base dedicated exclusively to breeding. Separate breeding farms, a controlled environment, zero interference from other activities. Each base has a single mission, and this makes all the difference in your daily routine within the game. I know that in the beginning you want to save resources and space by trying to make a nice little multifunctional base, but trust my patience test, that doesn't scale. With multiple bases unlocked, this division by function becomes the true advanced meta. When you stop forcing everything to coexist in the same place, you will see your production take off in a way a generalist base never could. If there is one thing that completely changes how you face the hardest fights in Palworld, it is understanding the combat cycle of your pals. Many people enter these legendary combats trying to play on autopilot, keeping the same pal on the field as long as possible, and that is exactly where the problem begins. When abilities enter cooldown, the pal basically becomes an easy target and you lose precious damage time. The most efficient way to play is to treat each pal as a burst of damage, not as a permanent fighter. You summon it, let it discharge its 3 main attacks as fast as possible, and the moment everything enters recharge, you withdraw it. No attachment, no forcing it. This timing is what separates a controlled fight from total chaos, especially against legendary bosses. The most interesting part is that when you start rotating your pals like this, combat gains an almost strategic rhythm. You are not just reacting, you're dictating the flow of the fight. There is always someone dealing damage while the other is resting off the field. This keeps the DPS up all the time, and at the same time avoids your pals taking those absurd hits that basically delete them. And honestly, once you get the hang of this rotation, it's hard to go back. Fights become cleaner, faster, and much safer. Against raid or legendary bosses, this stops being just an advanced tip and becomes practically mandatory if you want consistency. It's that type of mechanic the game doesn't explain to you directly, but when you discover it, everything seems to make sense. One thing that started to weigh heavily on me in the end game of version 1.0 was how boss damage simply explodes if you are not prepared. There were several times I arrived confident, thinking it was just a matter of skill, and ended up being deleted very quickly. That was when I realized it wasn't just about level or weapons, it was about preparation itself. The Ultra Shield became practically mandatory after that. The difference it makes in survival is absurd, especially against heavier attacks. Before, I even tried using simpler options, but a point comes where it no longer pays off to save on this. Another thing that made a huge difference was starting to respect the biomes. Entering a volcano area or tundra without thinking about the right armor is asking to suffer. And it's not just the temperature. Elemental resistances matter a lot, too. When I began adjusting my equipment according to the enemy type and the environment, combats became much more manageable. In the end, this was one of those mindset shifts for me. Stop trying to solve everything with brute force and start preparing better before fights. It might seem basic, but in the end game, this becomes practically an obligation if you want to face the hardest bosses with consistency.
One thing I did a lot in the beginning, and which today I see held me back significantly, was completely ignoring advanced food. I fed my pals only berries or basic feed and thought everything was fine. Only later did I realize I was failing to take advantage of one of the strongest and easiest buffs in the game. When you start using the electric kitchen to cook more complete dishes, the difference is quite clear. It's not just a matter of keeping pals fed. These dishes genuinely improve their performance. I started testing this at the base and saw my production accelerate greatly, especially with work speed bonuses. And in combat, this gets even more interesting. Before facing a raid, dungeon, or even a boss, preparing food with attack and defense buffs changes the outcome considerably. It's not something that guarantees victory on its own, but it helps make everything more consistent and gives you a larger margin for error during the fight. Today, I view food as part of the preparation, not as something secondary. It takes a bit more work than just throwing berries in the feed box, but the return pays off easily. It's that type of detail that when you incorporate it into your game, improves everything around you without you even noticing it that much.
Let me tell you something that saved me hours of life inside Palworld. Stop swapping your pals one by one as if you were still in the tutorial. We start the game dragging creatures manually to the team and somehow keep doing this until the end game as if no alternative existed. It's exhausting, breaks the rhythm of any exploration, and when you need to react quickly to a boss or an enemy base, losing half a minute in the menu is enough to take a beating. Version 1.0 finally provides an elegant solution to this, and the secret lies in the team presets. You can set up complete teams, give custom names to each one, and switch between them instantly. Think of the power of this: an elite squad just for combat with your strongest pals, an exploration team with fast mounts and pals that illuminate the night or endure extreme biomes, and another formed exclusively for farming and resource gathering, all ready, organized, and accessible within a few clicks. What I did was create specific presets for each region of the new map. Arrive at the ice area, I already switched to the Winter Explorers team. Need to invade a factions base? Combat preset engaged. Going to farm rare ores in some hidden cave? Gathering team already positioned. This isn't fluff, it's pure efficiency. You stop being the person who spends more time in the menu than playing and start flowing between activities as if the game had been designed for this all along. And look, with the content added in 1.0, expanded map, and tougher challenges, this quick swap stopped being a luxury and became a necessity. It took me a while to drop the habit of adjusting the team manually, but when I finally organized my presets, the experience changed completely. If you are still living in the chaos of manual swapping, give this a chance. Set up your teams tonight, and tomorrow you will already feel like you are playing a much more elegant Palworld.